the fundamentals, I think, are incredibly helpful and important. I think they do allow you to sort of be freed up to do all kinds of exciting things because you don't have to think about those things. But a skillful teacher, hopefully, can sort of get you out of your head, instill those fundamentals, but also teach you to trust yourself. The thing that is the most freeing is having that toolkit that you've practiced and you've played around with and you've gotten a chance to try on, and you can kind of start freestyling. You want to have those tools. I think those are incredibly important.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Azarian.
And I'm Tara Langella.
And welcome to The Process, the show where we deconstruct the creative process of professionals from all disciplines. Join us as we offer a masterclass in innovation and imagination.
We are so excited today to have as our guest the fabulous voiceover artist, Marisha Tapera. Marisha is an award-winning voice actor working in commercials, audio fiction, narration, audiobooks, and jingles. Her credits include working with such global brands as American Express, Hatchet Audio, Marriott Bonvoy, Dropbox, Penguin Random House Audio, Estee Lauder, Electronic Arts, Quilted Northern, American Honda, among many others. She is both a nominee and a Voice Arts Award winner. In addition to voiceover, Marisha is also a trained choral and studio singer in pop, jazz, and a classical soprano, and we are so excited to have her here. I cannot wait to talk about all of these things with you. Marisha, welcome to The Process.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Marisha, the first thing we always like to ask our guests is, what does the creative process mean to you?
Oh, I love this question. I'm a fan of your show. I have been catching up on episodes. You know, one of the stories that was very comforting to me when I really started to sort of hit the ground running with VO was about Robert De Niro. And this might be apocryphal. I'm not sure this has actually happened, but the idea was somebody asked him, why do you do it? Why do you act? And he said, self-expression. That's it. And I was really blown away by that. First of all, because it's like, you can do that. You can just say self-expression, and it can just be about what you want, what you need, that it's not some lofty, like saving the world idea. I really loved that, and I found it incredibly freeing because I think I'm an aspirational artist. I'm somebody who has always aspired to be an artist. I admire artists so much, and in every medium. And so for me, creativity, what De Niro said made so much sense, because to me, self-expression and the desire to communicate and connect with other people is what creativity is about. You do that certainly for yourself, to ground yourself on the planet and whatever this sort of magical experience we're having is all about, but it's also about building community and connection with other people. And I think that's sort of an underlying drive, you know. So yeah, that is what I think it is. It's lifeblood, you know, of the human experience, really. So yeah, that's beautiful. What I think it means to me.
That's beautiful. And you call yourself an aspirational artist, and you also talk about this underlying drive that you have. So I want to know where that underlying drive came from. Where did that originate from? What was that aha moment for you? Because we've all had those moments that's like there's something different here, or there's something that I need to, like you said, it's a drive. It's almost a compulsion. How did that start for you? When did you first feel that? When did you know this was your path as an artist?
When I think about where it all started, I can't help but think of this little preschool that I was in. And I don't know that there was we did Hansel and Gretel, and I was the witch. And
Yes.
I've written about this. I wrote
Yes.
my college entrance essay was about I was the witch. I started with that. But I remember so distinctly us rehearsing, practicing, getting everything together. My mom made me a little costume. I had the little black peaked hat and the entire thing. And the night of the performance, the thing that I still remember this, being pushed into the oven. And everybody laughed. There was like this like swell of laughter in the audience. And now, as in my great age, I can imagine, oh, that's so cute, little toddlers pushing each other into the oven. And at the time, I was so like confused and struck by what I wasn't playing for laughs. I mean, it was like, this is serious. She's bad, and she was doing these things, and the kids escaped, and whatever I had, attributed to my role, I was really struck by them, people laughing and having this reaction, this kind of something happening outside, and I think I was grew up looking at television and listening to soap operas. My family has like a long tradition. Your family looks at CBS or some other channel, and just really being struck by what people were creating with their behavior and singing commercials. I remember thinking maybe I could imitate this one particular jingle, some sort of weight loss product back in the day. But this woman had this very smooth voice, and I remember imitating it and trying to figure out how she was making that sound as a very little kid. So yes, it did. I don't know if I thought of doing it myself, but I know it was exciting to think about, playing with those tools, as a little kid.
I want to talk about your singing, Marisha, about your singing and all of this, vocal training that you've had. And so many voice actors that I know that are exceptional are either musicians, vocalists. And could you talk about that a little bit and how that's maybe informed your voiceover work, how that's sort of helped you approach it in terms of rhythm, or you probably can hear the musicality and rhythm of a commercial very, very quickly?
I think it is an ear thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it trains your ear, and you going over, you do a lot of rehearsal, especially with choral stuff. First of all, with choral in particular, you are learning parts, you're listening to other people, you're understanding, how what you're doing connects with and supports what other people are doing. So, and then of course, there's just the basic, understanding the your range and the timbre and tone, and also, the sort of the theatricality of something. Is this a dirge? Yes. Is this, is this something really light? What are we trying to communicate with this particular song, what the lyrics saying, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think having your ear trained to, as you said, the musicality of something and understanding the effect of going from high to low or going high, low, high. And you pay a little bit more attention to the musicality of everyday speech and how somebody's communicate. When I just said everyday speech, I'm just like, said the musicality of everyday speech. That's a completely different vibe.
Totally different energy.
That you're right. That does it does. You're already attuned a little to that, so I think it does help quite a bit.
Definitely, because you have that instinctually, where it takes, I think, a lot of artists, particularly, talking specifically about voice actors, that takes a lot of practice because it's so vital to what we do, right? I mean, you have to have that ear. You have to know kind of what's out there. So you have that instinctually. I want to talk to you about how you approach a character. You have all of these tools. You have these incredible tools that you have. But how do you go about that, Marisha, specifically? What is your process for when you look at, you look at copy and you're getting ready to audition for something in particular? What do you do? Like, what is your process? How do you approach it?
The idea of sort of understanding who you are is so helpful. It is incredibly helpful to have some compassion for yourself and to have come to a place where you feel compassion for who you are and like an appreciation for whatever this is that you are. And it helps you to be empathetic with a character. You sit down with a character and you say, who is this person? I'm interested. I would like to know who this is and what's going on with them. And then you can start to think about things and have fun with the idea of like playing in this person's world.
I have to say something to you because we at VO Rep we recently had a script reading, and it was a cold read for you. It was a cold read. We're like, we're gonna go in, and you just played, Marisha. You just and this is what I want to talk about, instinct, because there's training and there's instinct and there's all of these things and there's the essence of who we are that all come together. And I just love that you're like, here we go. You dove like right in, and it was hysterical. It was brilliant, and it was truthful, and you did not hold back. And I admire that so much in actors, because I really feel so strongly that in addition to technique and everything else, if you don't have the guts, if you don't have that immediate, like, I'm going to go for it and take a risk, that all of the other things are wonderful, but you got to have that, and you do. And I just have to say, you just went for it, and instinctually. What were you like? And what was that moment for you? What were you thinking? Were you thinking, I'm just going? Like, I'm just gonna. I trust this. What was that for you? I love to hear what's going on.
I'm so happy that you're bringing this up, because that was so incredibly fun. But I feel so much like it's such an incredible privilege and joy to have gifted people to play with. And this is the thing that's so cool about this work, is getting to work with people like you two, because there's this wonderful environment where I know you're so gifted and you're so technically you're so grounded technically. You understand exactly what you're doing. It is so fun to play with people that you trust, and who have put their trust in you. And I think what happened was you said, why don't you try this role? And I was like, oh, there's some screaming here. There's some intense stuff going on here. And I was like, I don't know. And there's this moment of, can I do this? I don't know if I can do this. I mean, that's definitely the original, but I trusted you all so much, and also just said, you know what, let's see what this is like. And then after I've given myself permission to do that, and just Richard Lawson, the actor and the coach, the acting coach, used to talk about people being able to stand up in front of people naked and turn around slowly. And I remember when he said that, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. That just sounds great. But it was just such a fantastic place to be grounded with, because it's like, I don't have to do all of that with a mic, we were on camera together, but I trust you guys so completely. So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I now get to try to figure out what would it be like to be this person going through this thing. And then you were over there throwing in your demon sounds, which were just incredible. And then we have like the concerned, companion character going, and all of that was happening at the same time. And it really allowed me to kind of just dive in, like you said, but I was getting so much from all of you. So it was just so fun.
For our viewers that don't know, we had a skit where Marisha had to be a woman that was being possessed, and she was just had to scream. And the script really just called for like mild screaming in the background, but she just kind of took it head on and just made it into something. And then that encouraged all the other actors to just elevate their performance. And it literally turned it into something quite amazing, all because of your impetus and your choice to do it that dramatically and truthfully.
911. She's having a baby, like right now. Okay, calm down, sir. Listen, I don't think this baby is going to wait for help to get here. Oh my! Is it happening? It's happening, isn't it?
Yes, it's happening.
Just push. Oh, it's here. Oh, Rosemary's baby is beautiful.
Oh, he's so red.
It's just like,
yeah,
what would be happening if this were happening? Then she wouldn't stop screaming. She would continue to be like, this is not comfortable, so yeah.
That brings up a good point that I think I'd love to hear your take on this. And I know Tara's spoken about this a lot. When you do an audition, especially for voiceover, and you have to make a choice of a character, and I believe they tell you kind of the spec or kind of what they want. But let's say, you want to do something maybe a little more dramatic and a little more like go there. Do you have that like, oh, should I give them what they want, or should I just go for it? Or like, what goes through your mind when you're making that decision on how to deliver that audition?
Tell you, I feel like I've had such great mentoring about this very thing, because you keep second guessing. And I'm one of those recovering people pleaser types that is just constantly like, I wonder what they want. Can I do it? Da-da-da. And, it's really, it's taken some time and also some feedback from, the more you work with people and get feedback from them, the more you're like, oh, okay, they want what I'm doing, so that's great. I think I'm always like, I think I do start sort of middle of the road often. Or at least I did. I'd say I feel like I can trust more my own instincts, and also just the sort of leaning into the joy of it, because it's hard not to be like, am I going to do this right? And there's this weird sort of, I don't want to say regressive, but you just think about yourself as a teenager, thinking that everybody around you is thinking about you, looking at you, whispering behind their hands about you, and literally are not. Or if they are, it's only because they're trying to make themselves look better. I mean, it's not about you at all. So I think, trying to get out of that mindset is, it's become, the more I have talked about it and been mentored about it and just had experiences, the more I'm like, you know what? What the heck do I have to lose? Why can't I enjoy myself while we're doing this? Why can't I just lean into the experience of playing this role? Because sometimes you get an audition, you're like, this is so cool, and this might be the only time I get to play this. So let me just like have at it, And then you can also do multiple takes. You can just have one take and then a second take that you provide. So I think that's where I've been really feeling more free as time has gone on. Yeah.
I love that.
It's funny because we had discussed that you didn't really have formal acting training,
right?
Which surprised both Tara and myself. And now listening to you talk, I realize one of the dangers of, and I think in any field, when you train, is sometimes there are certain rules that you have to go through to do things well, but many times that can stifle you. And sometimes, and I know even in my experience in acting school, a lot of times, you're working through class, and then finally the teacher will just say, all right, just forget what we've taught you, because they're trying to get you to just get to that point of not caring and just being free. So there is, I don't want to say a downside to education, creative education, but you have to, at times, I think sometimes you have to let it go and just trust that it's there and just forget about it. And I think you instinctively are doing that.
Yeah, I had that one acting and directing class in my senior year of college. I realized, oh, wait a minute, the smorgasbord is about to end. You had this opportunity to just take whatever you want. And I ran to the drama department and was like, okay, let me see if I can squeeze some things in. And I did have the one acting and directing class, which was fantastic. So yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. So some of that has stayed with me. And of course, listening to the James Lipton and various people over the years, I mean, there's so much material that we all have available to us now that you can kind of absorb. But I think, there is that scary thing, like when you think about writing as well. I was thinking about the Iowa workshop, and people went through that and came out and never wrote again. I mean, there's at least one absolutely amazing voice actor right now who has a graduate degree, like an MFA in screenwriting, has not written anything recently. And it's like, part of me is like heartbroken by that. But then the other part of me is like, well, he's pouring it into that. He's got that incredible grounding that allows him to be the most phenomenal voice actor. So I think, all of it's grist for the mill, I guess, ultimately. But that the fundamentals, I think, are incredibly helpful and important. I think they do allow you to sort of be freed up to do all kinds of exciting things because you don't have to think about those things. But a skillful teacher, hopefully, can sort of get you out of your head, instill those fundamentals, but also teach you to trust yourself, that it's not about like, I'm here like punishing you because you didn't do something right. But it's kind of like when you hear a little kid say, I'm eating this vegetable because it makes me big and strong. And you're like, okay, good parenting, because the whole idea is there's a positive association with eating the vegetables, And I feel like if there's, I don't want anybody to be scared of training, because I think, honestly, the training is incredibly freeing. If you are going to start, you're thinking about this, you want to do it, the thing that is the most freeing is having that toolkit that you've practiced and you've played around with and you've gotten a chance to try on, and then you can kind of start freestyling.
Yes.
So yeah, training is so incredibly important, but yes, be mindful of the style of the coach. You want them to be encouraging you. They should be thoughtful and also really specific and articulate about what they're saying and how they're critiquing you and what they're doing. And sometimes it's frustrating. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. You can feel like, I'm terrible at this. This person thinks I'm soft, blah blah blah. But you want to have those tools. I think those are incredibly important.
That's beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Yes.
Oh, good.
And you brought up another point, to go back to that example of us when we were workshopping that script and you were being that dramatic horror character. You got the instant feedback from us that it was good. So you went with it and were confident. But talk about, voice actors that are auditioning and they're all alone in their booth, in their basement, and they have to deliver something and they're not getting that feedback. So at some point you have to trust in yourself to say, I'm going to do this read, or I'm going to do this read, and I'm going to hit send. Do you want to talk a little bit about that moment?
Oh, yes. I mean, you spend quite a bit of time in that mode where you're like, I'm just going to send this on to the ether and we'll see what happens. You either don't get any feedback, like there's no response, or, you finally go to a workout because you're like, hello, anybody out there? What's happening? And then you discover, you get some weird feedback from somebody that maybe is a peer or somebody who doesn't necessarily get you, or, and you're so vulnerable. And that vulnerability is so important. I mean, you've got to kind of try to hold on to that and still go out there with your raw edges out, to do the work. But at the same time, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I think having community is so helpful, and finding a place where you can work out and you can experiment and you can play around, even if it's not about, I'm here to be critiqued. It's genuinely just, I mean, there are illustrators. I have YouTube illustrators. They're not illustrators on YouTube, but they're just people who film their process. yes, look at that show title reference. And talk about their sketchbooks. And there's one woman in particular says, I have an ugly sketchbook. And she calls it her ugly sketchbook because she's like, I'm going to do whatever I want in here. And it's gorgeous. It's like stunning work because, of course, she's had a lot of ugly sketchbooks that she hasn't cared about, to the point that, and there might be things that she notices that she doesn't like that are in there, but she's giving herself permission to do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, I feel like for actors, it's playing and recording yourself. And you can see people doing like fan dubs and things like that. I mean, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And then also having community and workouts that you do with other people that, give you discover things about yourself. And, then you do start to feel a little more confidence. Like, okay, I did this embarrassing thing and I lived to tell the tale, But yeah, that kind of stuff that's outside of the time that you have to produce, where you're really just playing for the sake of doing it, I think is probably important if you're feeling alone and just uncertain in your booth, because that does happen to everybody.
So in addition to the work you do in your booth, it's important to, outside of that, be members of communities and integrate with other people doing what you're doing to kind of get that feedback and that sense of community and support.
I think so. Thank you for making that more concise. You know me, I start rambling.
Well, and I love what you said, Marisha. I want to get back to this because I think this is so important, what you said about, if we have listeners out there who are training or looking for training or looking for coaching, what you said about finding the right coach for you. Because I'm going to use the example for acting technique. There's so many different types of acting techniques. And some people are, they're into Meisner and everything else. Meisner didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me.
Right.
That was not my technique. Doesn't mean it's not a solid, phenomenal technique that works for some people. It didn't work for me. For me, I was all about Stella Adler and Stella's techniques. That just clicked for me. It spoke to me, and it helped me find myself eventually. Because as you said, the technique is great. Number one, you have to apply it. And I think when you can apply it anywhere, like you said, in groups, or get together with like-minded artists and create content so that you have a safe space. What you said about having that safe space, and you need that safe space with a teacher. Now, on that note, the question I have for you is there a teacher or a mentor that you've had that really kind of gave you a bit of advice or said something to you that really just helped you find yourself, or really just, maybe change something in you or put you in just a whole other trajectory? I would be interested to know.
I think I have to call out Jordan Reynolds specifically. And I feel conflicted, not because Jordan is not phenomenal, but because there have been so many incredible coaches I've worked with recently. But he struck me in particular because he is a working actor. He's doing a lot of different kinds of stuff. The thing that's interesting about him was how he was really good at, because he himself is such a mimic, he was really good at like, it was almost like a tape recorder playing back to me something that I had done that was not necessarily ideal for what the result I was looking for. And I would be shocked because it was like, I can totally hear myself and what he just, I know that's exactly what I heard, like bouncing around in my skull when I was talking. Okay. he's playing it back to me. And he would specifically explain what needed to be tuned about that, what the problem was. And he was particularly amazing at explaining and also demonstrating exactly so it wasn't so much like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. He keeps harping on this one point and I can't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. For whatever reason, there's something about him that accomplished that really well. I think the other person that the most recent person, the person I worked with most recently was Tom Pinto. For in-show narration, we were really focusing on in-show narration. And I think, he also had a very interesting, I think, kind of actorly approach, which was, he wanted, it was almost like, think of yourself as a film student, you're picturing the kinds of visual tropes that you see in a show. It's a documentary, it's a nature documentary. There's going to be a wide shot. There's going to be one of those like sort of big drone shots, sweeping things, and then you're going to zoom in, and you also thinking about what that's communicating to the audience visually. That, okay, you're all the way out here, and now we're going to drill down and drill down and drill down to this exotic bird that's sitting on this branch, and that you vocally need to think about, we're out here, and now we're going to get down here, and we're going to talk about this special endangered bird, or this bird that is actually a carrion bird that you think is really cute, but it'll like bite your finger off, whatever it is, So I was really intrigued and really delighted by that, these sort of principles of storytelling transcending, genre. Even though the techniques are a little different, there are that communication is always the goal.
And being
you had me drawn in just when you were saying that.
I was like,
I love it.
I was like, I could see the
Tom,
bird.
Yeah.
I mean, I physically went like this. Just kind of
yeah, me too.
What else is Marisha going to say? You're like just like a master storyteller, because that's what a master storyteller does. It's you tell the story, but it's also in the pauses. It's also in that kind of like, and then what? Yeah, and then what's going to happen? So yeah, I like what you said about those techniques, because that was a scene. That was a total scene, and we were immersed in that scene that you created with your voice.
And that's not fiction. So
right.
It was exciting to understand, to be sort of let in on that for that particular genre. Yeah. That's very cool. That's how that felt to you.
I'd like to ask you, Marisha, you had recorded for us an audio drama, Significant Deal.
Oh.
And in it you played, a woman that, kind of accepted this award nefariously. And in the scene, a woman was accepting an Academy Award, and we were recording it during a live direct session.
Yeah.
And you just picked up an object to represent the award in your studio, and we did it. And you looked at it, and you kind of created that scene while you delivered the performance, which was amazing, was very well done, and it was what we used in the final piece.
Thank you.
So, is that something you do often? And I want to talk about like you're creating that sense of play, like picking up props in your vocal booth or doing things physically. A lot of times people say, directors will say, "I want you to smile when you say that line," and even though we can't see it, it still comes through. So I'm assuming your physicality or what you do with a prop or yourself, do you do that often? And what are the results of that?
I really, people talk, when you're learning, when you're first getting into VO, people are constantly talking about your physicality, and you need to bring your physicality to it. But I think, first of all, once again, the more you train, and especially because getting to train in different genres is really helpful. Learning about ADR and dubbing the last couple of years has been really interesting, because we do have this sort of limited little space. There's an effect of being off mic. I mean, it's a real thing. So you get very concerned with trying to constrain yourself when you're trying to create a sense of movement without getting too far off mic and all of that. And of course, that's why getting slightly better equipment as time goes on is helpful. But that whole idea that here is this this German woman who's crossing the screen, and she's bending down, she's opening a cabinet, and the director's like, you need to do all of that, because we need to your every space in your body changes as you move, and you're going to get different effects, and we all understand that. That's also something that it's interesting looking at singers and the different shapes they make with their mouths to get specific effects and all that. I mean, just the physics of the body and of the voice are just really interesting, and it's helpful to kind of be observing all of that. I think, also just the imagination thing. I mean, to your point about that water bottle, I mean, it was just this perfectly shaped water bottle.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, that is exactly what I need right now, because that whole, every time you've seen somebody accept an award, they're holding it, they're admiring it, they're looking at it. There's all kinds of interplay with that object. And I knew I needed that to sort of, help me go to that place where it's like, here's this thing I've achieved.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to thank the Academy for this prestigious honor. And most importantly, I'd like to dedicate this award to Mona Steele, my best friend, who died 26 years ago today. Thank you, Mona. I wouldn't be on this stage tonight if it weren't for you.
This other character's soul is contained in the thing, whatever it is.
Yes.
But yeah, all of that was there, but it was also, it was something that was grounding, that allowed me to kind of be grounded, and it also, and to just imagine all of the many, many award acceptances I've seen. And of course, I'd had that one amazing experience myself doing that. So
Right.
Yes.
Right.
yeah.
You're the Voice Arts Awards.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that was wild. I
Talk
was
to
just
us
enjoying
about that.
myself.
Yes. What was that like?
I apologize for even bringing that up, because I feel kind of silly. That was quite a few years ago.
Please bring that up. I want to hear all about that. When you were sitting there and you heard your name called at the Voice Arts Awards.
I mean, I went because it was a part of, the community thing. I was like, this is an opportunity to network. This is an opportunity to go have a really wonderful time at this event. I was working with Anne Ganguza at the time. She was the first person that I worked with coming back into really getting into community with VO, because I've been doing it very part-time for such a long time. And she said, I think we should submit it. So bless her. I mean, that's how I met Paul. I met so many people from working with Anne, and she said, what do you think about submitting? And I was like, I don't even know what this is. So we submitted, and then she got in touch with me and was like, guess what? So I said, I'm going to go out there, and and it was up in New York. I take that back. So I drove up and I had a night, and I was like, I'm going to go. I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm just going to go and hang out in the audience. I think I almost got kicked out because I was recording. And somebody came up and was like, listen, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, of course, I was like, because I was just so excited. I was like, look at this person, and this person, and this person. And so, it was just it was surreal. It really was surreal. And I don't remember getting down there and coming back up. I mean, it was just one of those things. I darted down there, and all I could think was, get off the stage. Get off the stage. We have, again, all have spent our lives watching people get played off, It's like, I was like, Marisha, if there's ever a time not to ramble, it is now. Get in, say thank you, and get the heck out of there. So that was all I was focused on. But yeah, that was an amazing, amazing experience.
Oh, wow. It's fantastic.
Can you give advice to people that want to get into VO? I mean, do you have any advice to give them from any aspect of the career?
I tell you,
anything that comes to mind?
I think, everybody, I think every single one of us has experienced this. If you tell somebody you're a copy editor, which I have been, they say, oh, I have a novel. Can you, can you edit it? If you say anything about being a voice actor, people always, oh, I've always wanted to do that, etc. And at first I was like, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do when somebody's saying this to me. But there are so many incredible resources now. I want to be a voice actor.com, I think, is premium. I think that is a D. Bradley Baker. I think it's D. Bradley Baker's website. He's the clone on Clone Wars. I mean, all of the clones he plays on. He voices every single one of them.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I mean, insane. And has taken the time to compile the most incredible starting point for anybody in any genre, So I personally would suggest just start to study. The other thing is Voiceover School is such an incredible podcast because they interview people who are working behind the scenes, not necessarily all voice actors, in almost every genre of voice acting. I think just understanding that there are a lot of genres and you find your lane. There are people who are just incredible at IVR and at any kind of, sort of orientation, voice acting. I'm still trying to learn about creative businesses, being creative on command as Todd Henry. There's a guy out there called Todd Henry who talks a lot about, commercial creativity and the challenges of that, which is different. And
it is.
A lot of genres of voiceover are exactly that. So I just think, just enjoying artists and people who are making things in general and learning from them. There's so many podcasts. There's so many YouTube videos. But then in the genres that you're interested in, just like watching other people who are doing things that you really like. But those resources that some people have put together, there are so many high quality ones. And D. Bradley Baker is a great jumping off place. I think that's the place I would send people first and foremost. Yeah.
And where do you go for inspiration? I mean, you've already mentioned Robert De Niro. You've mentioned some films, and I mean, what are your top 5 go-to shows or places to go for inspiration?
I would say I'm a YouTube person, mostly because when I moved into my house, I was like, cable is going to get expensive and I'm not going to get it. So I had YouTube, and that was back in I think at the very beginning of YouTube. I love fiction television. However, we're so busy running around doing things. But the thing that's great with me, for me with YouTube, because I've been following for a long time, but you see real people. Sometimes they're, of course, they're curating what they're presenting, but you're seeing the full gamut of experience. And you're seeing real people play these things out in a way that isn't being manipulated by a producer. So it's reality TV without the kind of questionable ethics of the producers getting people to do things. And people travel, people are remodeling their houses, people are dealing with their own disabilities or their mental illnesses, people are playing with their pets, there's just a full gamut of human experience is available there. So I personally enjoy finding and you can dip in and out for 10 minutes, with somebody's nice little video.
Marisha, could you share a challenging role or audition or something that you had where it was challenging, or maybe you went against the spec because you wanted to try something different, or something that was a challenge for you and the result of that, whether it was positive or negative, like an example of a situation?
There was a huge studio that I still, to this day, am not entirely sure what that was. Okay. But it was coming from this big studio. And they had I freelanced for a manager. They sent me 2 or 3 characters from this thing. And one of them was older, one was younger. And I remember thinking, well, okay, I said, I'm just going to do all of it. They sent them to me. So let me just, I'll work on all of them and differentiate them. And I thought about them and there was a dialect involved as well. So I was like, okay, let me look at this dialect and see if there's also the question of and do I have a personal connection to this dialect? And I was like, okay, because I'm like one of those, again, aspiring polyglot. I'm not. I love working on learning languages and all that. And dialect to me is it's super helpful in so many different ways. So I like to study, and in fact, I have a dialect class tonight. But I had worked on this. I'd gone to dialect training with this woman who had trained everybody on Black Panther, and I was like, oh, I had just done that like a few weeks before, so I was like, okay, I'm going to use it, So I worked on, did the auditions, and I got a call back that was on camera with this. These two young producers, and they were saying, well, we think you should do the younger character. And I was like, okay, it was just such a funny, I was like, I wouldn't have expected that. If I had, I think, it is so hard to trust and not try to think for or try to, I want to say second guess, but that's not quite the right word, but try to anticipate what somebody wants. So when you think you're going against type, are you? I mean, yes, there's often an elaborate spec. But, sometimes you have to read between lines, or sometimes it's like, okay, I've got to trust the person who sent this to me. If you're self-submitting, then that's a whole different thing where you just have to kind of go for it and decide, no, I feel like I can bring something to this. But that really surprised me. I would not have auditioned for that character if I had just been going strictly by the spec. And they were like, no, we want to hear more from you with this particular character. That was like, oh, okay. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So and especially because there was a dialect involved. And so I had to do they wanted to see if I could do it on the spot. I could do it for them essentially in the room. And it was an amazing, that was such a validating experience, because it was like, okay, I not only did I manage to do that, but they were happy. So
yes.
That was an amazing experience.
And you managed to you were present, you were in the moment. You said, okay, this is what they need to do. Just like you were open. You didn't have that, well, wait a second, no, I'm not there. Some actors, may, well, I don't know this. I prepared this, and I don't know if I, and may have a block on that. And you did not.
Well, I also immediately went to get coaching on it. I was like,
there we go.
I did. I mean, I was like,
Smart.
it was a little bit of an investment, because I was like, this is a big studio. Let me go ahead and talk to somebody that I know does animation, blah, 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 let me talk to them. And that person, it just so happened, had lived in a part of the world that this person was from. So it was perfect. I was really lucky on that one. But it really was just about hearing the consistency of it and just being able to sort of play around with it. And of course, she had incredible ideas about thinking about the character and what the character's motivation might be, what some of the subtext might be. So it was really helpful, but I take that back. I got the training for the initial audition, and then for the callback, I just touched base with her again, and she said, okay, well, they want you to do the exact same scene exactly as you did it. I guess they just wanted to see if I, had spliced it together in the recording or not. But I definitely gave myself a little insurance so that I didn't have to be second guessing myself, because, just in case you don't want to, you need support sometimes.
You did your research. Which is also important when for any audition that you have. If you have a video game audition and you to know, and sometimes we don't have the luxury of knowing what that game is. 90% of the time we don't, because there's a code name. But there are clues. There are usually clues in there that you can go and you can Google and say, oh, it's in this universe.
Yes.
this is the style of that particular game. So that'll give us a hint as to how we might want to approach that. And then if you're still not sure, you do what you do. You get help. You get somebody who can give you the guidance so that when you get to that point, you can just let it rip like you did.
Yeah.
So I guess the moral is if you're given a particular character that you think is not your type, you shouldn't let your head get in the way and just go for it and just do your best and deliver it, even if you don't think it's what you should be doing.
I think
because
so.
the results may surprise you.
The results may surprise you. Yeah, absolutely.
Happens a lot. I had an agent, one of my agents said that to me. So, Tara, I'm going to send you things and you may think, well, this is out of my wheelhouse or this isn't it. He goes, I want you to trust me and I want you to do it. Whatever I send you. And I've always taken that advice. Whenever I get, I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm going in.
Yep. Exactly.
And you surprise your, and you know what though? But that's getting back to, that's what we do. That's part of what we do as creatives is we take the risks. And you know what? Sometimes you do the job and you go, wow, I surprised myself. And then sometimes you go, oh, well, yeah, I was right. That wasn't in my wheelhouse at all. I'm going to go back and listen to some of these old auditions. What was I thinking?
Exactly.
But it's going to happen. And, you're going to have things that you're just, that are we're going to fail. I mean, that's what we can't be afraid of it as creatives because that's what we're going to do. And then we learn from that.
Yeah.
You just keep on going.
Absolutely.
So Marisha, let everyone know where they can find you.
Oh, I'm on at marishavoice.com. I am on Instagram at mcratuli, and I'm on X/Twitter at Marisha Voice, and also on Facebook there. But the website has links to all of that stuff.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you love the most about your creative process?
I think it's the opportunity to indulge my curiosity. I love to, research and to have my horizons broadened and to get to, imagine possibilities. That's like the great thing about living, about life to me. And to get to not just do that passively, but to actively dive into it and to make something out of it is just, it's such a privilege.
Thank you so much, Marisha. Daniel, what am I drinking out of?
Oh, a water bottle. So
what is this not? What is this not, Daniel?
We need to get a
not. What is it not?
Rules.
It's not a processed mug. We have
Thank
to get
you.
a processed mug.
I need the mug.
To tip the head.
We need the
back.
mug. I got to tip the head back, and then the water's
we'll
going to go.
get a
It's going to be
processed
bad.
mug.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Daniel.